the Nevermore narrative with your host, Count David von Ravenstein.
There you go.
Is it?
Oh,
is
shit.
It?
Whoops. Oh, what the fuck? What happened to you, George?
I don't know.
Whoa.
What happened?
You shut your camera off?
No.
You were here a minute ago.
Yeah, he was fine. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Nevermore Narrative, episode 6. Give us a minute while we get situated and get George back, because
He'll be back.
I don't.
You gotta turn your camera off and on or some shit.
Yeah, hold on.
Skype hated you for a second.
I mean, this ain't me this time.
There
There you are. Oh, you're so tiny.
Is he tiny? He's big. He's tiny.
Yeah.
Got my candles lit up. Good. All right, guys. So, welcome to the show, Nevermore Narrative. What we do here is just kind of talk about anything supernatural, paranormal, extraterrestrial, shit like that interests people, that it's like weird and creepy and almost taboo. Most people don't want to talk about. Joining me as always is Josh and George. Dude, you got to fix George again.
I'm so tiny.
He's slowly like slinking away.
Damn. I don't touch anything.
I wasn't touching shit.
Sorry.
So tonight's subject, we got into it last week about how I don't really believe that the moon is real, and I believe it's hollow. And they were giving me shit about it. So I was like, you know what? Fuck you guys. We're doing an episode about the moon. Do your fucking research.
So tonight's episode is conspiracy theory related.
Yes.
So, David, do you have anybody else that you know that shares in your theory of no moon?
No, because I actually just kind of stumbled upon this theory recently.
You're all alone?
Yes. As far as I know, yeah. What about you guys? Would you guys do any research? Where are your thoughts on this whole moon thing?
I did some research, like I said, David. I didn't delve into it as much as you have, obviously, but I still haven't found any scientific facts that can back up that the moon is in fact hollow.
Josh, I'm assuming you didn't do anything?
No, of course not. But I don't think that the moon's not real. What's up, Manny?
Hello, Manny.
What up, Manny?
You know, there is no for sure story about the creation of the moon. There's just sort of a bunch of them, but people tend to favor this one a little bit more than the others. And the one that they consider is like, the real origin of the moon is a supposed impact crater. Like back before Earth was still just molting, kind of rock. It was like a ball. That there was a Mars-like planet that crashed into it, and then eventually, pushed off just far enough to sort of form into a ball and was captured in the orbit, and that became the moon, and Earth became the Earth. But that, a lot of people don't really buy that theory, and there's a couple sources that I was able to find that, things that I watched cite these are the sources that say otherwise. And some of these sources go back to ancient times. One of which, a couple of the sources, are some ancient Greek philosophers, Democritus, and
Democritus?
Democritus? Sorry.
Democritus?
Anaconda? No. I forget. I can't fucking.
Anacornicova.
Something like that.
The tennis player?
They kind of believe that the moon, in their writings, in ancient Greek writings, they say that there was a time before the moon was actually here. Aristotle actually wrote about this. The Hellenes, butchering every fucking word.
No, it's good.
Ancient Greek, the place of Arcadia. This is the Hellenists and the Pelasgians. They were the ones that were there originally in Arcadia. And that's why they call themselves the pro-Selenists, like before them, I guess, And so, according to them, in their Aborigine, theory, that they were there before the moon came into orbit. And then ancient Rome, Plutarch also wrote, there are Arcadians of Evander's following, the so-called pre-lunar people. So there's a bunch of different ancient writings that say that the moon was not here. It wasn't always here. Even in the ancient, or the Zulu tribe, the Zulu legend, in their belief that two brothers with scaly, fish-like skin, Wuang and Mpanku, brought the moon after stealing it from a great fire dragon. Which I don't really know what the fire dragon part is, but according to the Zulu legend, them too, the moon wasn't always here. It was brought.
Well, I mean, if they believed in fire dragons, they got to be a credible source. So.
Well, it's kind of weird for you to say when something is a fire dragon. If how would you kind of explain things where you don't really have the quite knowledge and terminology for certain things? Like, for example, if you were in ancient times and you saw a long spacecraft that was shooting out fire, how else would you describe it? Fire-breathing steel dragon.
But a dragon wasn't a thing either. A dragon is also made up.
Yeah.
Now you're saying dragons are real, David?
Probably. I wouldn't put it past it, dude.
No one wants dragons to exist more than I do, but I don't think dragons existed, David. I'm pretty sure that's a myth.
I bet there are a certain amount of people though that believe in back in like the medieval times that there were dragons.
I could believe that for sure.
I mean, why else were there depictions in those drawings, medieval times of dragons and shit like that? If they weren't real, but people were just making it up and everyone went along with it.
Yeah, why not? People make up science fiction novels now. Creativity has never been like a thing that's never existed, David.
A dragon.
Did you think that everyone was just dumb and all of a sudden we just started making science fiction novels and fantasy novels? No, the people have been creative since the dawn of time. The intelligence level was just a different thing, only because they didn't have science or anything at that time, so they had to use like magic and all that kind of stuff.
Couldn't a dragon be like a personification of something, like a huge force, like what's his name?
The mountain.
No. Well, I was thinking, what's his name? The Mongol guy.
Oh,
Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan, like Genghis Khan's army.
It's Genghis Khan, motherfucker.
What?
That little Asian dude.
Yeah, the proper pronunciation for that is Genghis Khan.
This whole fucking time.
Yeah, Genghis
I always thought it was Genghis.
Yeah.
What if
Genghis Green?
What if it's
Let me learn you.
Like Angus McKinnon.
Like Genghis.
So, to back up those original theories of ancient Greek and Rome and the Zulu legends, back in 1970 in July in Russia, two Russian physicists named Michael Vassin and Alexander Sherbakov. There you go. Fuck. They published an article in Sputnik magazine, and this bit in the article their story is called "Is the Moon the Creation of Intelligence?" And through their research and discovery, they found that the moon dust that makes up the surface of the moon is made up mostly of chromium, titanium, and zirconium. And their discovery of those three elements that mainly make up the moon dust is that if you were trying to cloak something and prevent it from any like radioactivity, like from the sun and shit like that, those would be the elements that you would definitely cloak the moon with. And they too also believe that the moon obviously is not of terrestrial origin, or origin as in the celestial body like other planets. What's weird about it all is that the moon, we all know it serves a great purpose here to Earth. It gives us our seasons, our tidal waves move and everything, like just its gravitational pull helps this Earth be what it is and helps life thrive. That's the only moon in our solar system that has any benefit like that in relation to other planets.
Well, apparently the moon also slows the Earth's spin due to tidal torque. So the spin is to believe have been about 4 times faster early in Earth's history. So such that they before. Well, I guess before. But I mean that doesn't really prove your point at all.
I know.
Especially since let me see here. Since Some scientists say that the moon is actually older than planet Earth.
Hey, Elizabeth, what's going on?
Hello, Elizabeth.
What up,
There-
Elizabeth?
Actually believe that the moon is older than the actual solar system, meaning that it
No.
wasn't.
It says here that the
Actual sun-
moon is. Let me see. I had the
Some
article
people
here.
believe that too. There's an articles about that too. That the
Yeah.
moon is like they're considering it to be older than our solar system.
It says
which
the
means-
moon researchers now say likely formed about 50 million years after the solar system did, which is much earlier than the previous estimate of 150 million years after the solar system formation. So it's still the solar system happened first.
So, the solar system has evolved considerably since the initial formation. Many moons have formed from circling disks of gas and dust around their parent planets. While other moons are thought to have formed independently and later been captured by their planets. So they're saying that they form basically based off of gas and dust and like pressure.
Typically, yeah, any regular moon would, but our moon is not. I don't think so. My goal, I guess, in this episode is not necessarily to convince you guys, but at least to look at it from a different perspective.
I already told you I'm
Why?
going to look at it from a different perspective, but I mean, like I said, you're just gonna have to, just state your case.
Okay, so the moon. Let's see. What do I want to say? Okay, so obviously we benefit from our moon being exactly where it's at, but in relation to the rest of the planets in our solar system, our moon is quite large considering the size of our planet. If you were to say other moons, other planets, their moons are much smaller and a bit further away. They're not as close as our moon is.
Yeah, that is the fact. But I mean that shouldn't give you like that shouldn't signify that the moon is not man-made, but just was created.
Well, for me, it's
That's not enough information or that to suggest that that's even a thing.
So let's say that the initial thought of how the moon was created with that impact and it molding and forming over time.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, it just so happened to be that the moon molded into a perfect fucking sphere that's 2,160 miles wide in diameter. Not 2,161, not 2,159, but 2,160 miles wide. And this thing fits perfectly. When it goes through an eclipse, it's right there. It's not slightly below.
I know
it's
how
not
when the
slightly
eclipse
above.
works.
It's right in line with the sun. Does that strike you as odd?
No.
So
Not at all.
moon's exact diameter is 2,115. Hold on. Yeah. Right? Hold on. Let me verify because I just Googled it. Moon's exact diameter. Yep. 2,159.2 miles.
According to, I use that according to the ancient astronaut theory. Let's see. I had something else. Son of a bitch, where would it go? Damn, I wrote so much.
So you're talking about the fact that it's spaced enough, even though
It's so perfect.
small,
It's
it's
so
close enough to us to perfectly fit to block the sun out.
yeah.
Yeah,
So the
Isn't
moon was
that-
created by Mr. Burns.
something like that. Yes,
Great theory.
it is.
I agree with David's theory. It makes
Excellent.
sense when you look
Excellent.
more into it. That's what Elizabeth says.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You guys are meant for each other.
I know.
If you think about the infinite amount of possibilities that can happen in the universe, so the universe is constantly expanding. It's expanding now as we speak.
Yes.
And then there's like infinite universes inside of that universe. So you don't think that it would just so
Are
happen
you talking
that
about
there
galaxies or universes?
universes. So the universe isn't just one thing; it's multiple universes.
Yeah.
So this is like the infinite theory, right? So I'm gonna try and figure out an easier way to explain this. So since there's an infinite amount of universes, there's an infinite amount of possibilities where you, me, and Josh have already had this conversation an infinite amount of times. Okay, so out of this, just the sheer possibility, why wouldn't you think that out of all of those infinite possibilities, why wouldn't the moon have been shaped the way it is, been formed that way?
I think if one of those possibilities, if it was how they say it happened, I think it would be slightly different looking, slightly different in size, and certainly it wouldn't have happened right in line with the sun when eclipses happen. That's far too coincidental for it
Well,
to
I mean,
be. Or
anything lines up over time.
Yeah.
You
Even the
just, you just
small,
mean
even
the fact
the
that there's no space on the outside of the sun. Is that what you're saying?
so
yeah,
you
like when you see an eclipse, there's just it fits perfectly, blocks out the sun. It's
So are you
not
telling me
slightly off.
this?
It's in line with the sun. It's
We
not
know how the
slightly
eclipse works.
down further. Like I said earlier, it's not slightly down further where you can still see the sun and the moon. It's
Yeah.
not slightly up further. It's right there
It's
in
right
line
there.
with the
That's how
sun.
an eclipse works, David. So you're telling me within the rest of the solar system that there are no planets that experience eclipses, and that's just a phenomenon that only happens here on Earth.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, isn't it weird?
Well, I
that it
mean
would
that's
actually
kind of
happen
that's
right
kind of
there at
exactly
that
what you're
specific spot?
saying right now, because other moons.
Other planets can experience solar eclipses like that, but ours just so fits perfectly like that. Other planets have different moons, so they'd have different eclipses.
Yeah,
But
there's like how many? There's a shit ton of moons in our solar system.
no, Jupiter has like 17.
There's
right?
there's a fuck ton.
Did you see that Jupiter's was like had water spouts or something on it?
Okay, so there's 200
one of
there's 200
Jupiter's
known
moons.
moons in our solar system.
Holy shit!
200. And it's funny that we picked this one, the one closest to us, as the moon.
Europa.
Yeah.
Jupiter's moon Europa confirms
Europa.
water vapor is there.
Well, I mean, there's supposed to be water on the moon, but it's not. It's not a liquid; it's solid, so it's frozen. It's supposed to be something ridiculous, like 100 billion tons of water.
Supposedly, yeah, there's water frozen underneath the moon's surface, which
Yeah.
I'm not buying. Because
Why not?
We'll get to this now. Now, according to NASA and the Apollo missions, Apollo 12, when they left the moon, they planted a seismograph there on the moon to test to see if we all know there is no, water really, but no wind, no real formation. There's nothing that's supposedly there to protect the moon from getting pelted with.
It doesn't have It doesn't have an atmosphere.
No atmosphere.
So yeah, it can't defend
no,
It can't defend itself from, from debris. Like,
and if the moon is
comets.
if the moon is a solid rock, there wouldn't be any tectonic plates like we do here on Earth. But they put a seismograph there anyway. So as Apollo 12 is leaving from the moon back to the command ship, their rocket booster that detaches from the module drops and it lands on the moon. And now, let's see, it rang. The moon reverberated like a bell for almost an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So they came back and they're like, "What the fuck was that about? That should not have happened." So then Dr. Werner von Braun, the former Nazi scientist who helped build the rockets that got us to the moon, decided to make a heavier rocket booster and detached that to Apollo 13. So when we went back up there again, same thing. We left, we detached that rocket, and it fell back onto the surface of the moon. And this time it rang for like a gong for 3 hours, and with a depth of over 20 miles. That's how it rang, like a fucking bell, meaning that the moon's got to be hollow?
No, not necessarily.
So what other planet would ring like that if something drops?
Some planet that doesn't have water on it, as like an absorption, like a sponge. So since the planet is completely, hold on, I have a thing on that actually.
This kind of depends on a lot of things, though. Like, what if the seismograph? Or how far was the seismograph away from?
No, they strategically planned it out so that it would crash within 20 miles of the seismograph, so that way they could get a reading. So they planned for it to test it out. Let me see here.
So if those of you who are interested in any of these things, there's a couple of books that I came across that I do myself want to get. This one was written in 1975 by Don Wilson called Our Mysterious Spaceship Moon. And another book written in 1976 by George Leonard. Books called Somebody Else is on the Moon. And these books also further the theory that the moon is hollow and not of this solar system.
All right, so between 1972 and 1977, scientists recorded 28 shallow moonquakes registering as high as 5.5 on the Richter scale on Earth. That will move heavy furniture and crack plaster, but vibrations usually die down in a matter of minutes. It all comes down to water. There's moisture in the materials that make up our planet, expanding their structure as energy from an earthquake moves through our planet. That damp material acts like a sponge, absorbing the energy of the waves and ultimately deadening their effects. But the moon is dry, cool, and rigid, more like a solid rock than a sponge. So if a moonquake is less intense, there's nothing to deaden the vibrations. They just go back and forth through the body until the solid stone eventually stops them. The ringing bell is the shock waves of the shockwaves reverberating through that stone. So since it's a solid object, it is no water, like as the water there is frozen, right? So it's just like a giant, like a solid rock. Right?
Yes.
And it also, and you mentioned earlier what the composition of the moon was. They had metal in it, right? Aluminum and chromium and stuff like that.
Chromium, yeah.
So there's some metallic alloys in there. So I mean, it's gonna reverberate and shake because there's no absorption there. Like on our planet.
But for it to ring for 3 hours?
And Angela asked.
But it's only from that one spot, though.
Angela asked, so they know it made a sound, but how do they know what sound? So they didn't know it made a sound at all. They know that it vibrated.
It vibrated.
David's saying a ring like a bell, but it was not a ring. It was a vibration.
The second time
there's actually a recording of it. There was a recording of it.
An audio recording?
Yeah, audio.
They had audio equipment up there as well.
I don't know how accurate that is, though. See, I don't believe. That's the one thing I don't really believe is that they had that audio equipment at that time.
What, during the 1970s?
Well, no, just that
audio equipment in the seismograph. You mean?
Well, no, just that it would pick up the ringing sound from the moon. You know.
So I know some of the other things.
I know they had audio for the moon and whatnot, but I mean, I just don't know if it would pick up the whatever sound that it gave off. You know?
Yeah. So I know some of the other things I discussed was not only did I believe that the moon is not real, the fact that it's hollow, but I also said that there was an actual base on the moon.
Yeah,
an extraterrestrial base.
You mentioned the base.
And I mentioned to these guys before, during the Apollo 11 landings, the first time we landed on the moon, there was a 2-minute radio silence between the astronauts and Houston, back here on Earth.
Mm.
But what they didn't, NASA edits that out, but what they kind of forgot was that people were at home listening to their old ham radios, and they were able to intercept those 2 minutes of silence. And what they heard was the astronauts saying back to Houston, like, hey, they're looking at us. So who's looking at you? Well, they are. They're right over there. Just on, few kilometers away, there was a crater, and on the edge of that crater were apparently alien spacecraft just chilling and watching them, like, do what they're doing. He's like, well, don't engage, don't talk to them or anything, or don't, make any contact. Just keep doing what you're doing and then get out of there. But what's weird is that there's also footage, too, of, like, when the Apollo 11 spacecraft is landing, from the inside, you could see lights, like little tiny orbs just floating around, kind of, just darting real quick. They were near them the whole time. Buzz Aldrin even said it. That's, the other guy who was on the moon. And so, Josh, could you pull up that picture for me? One of the astronauts. So when they came back to Earth, all these guys, you think that this was like the greatest achievement that mankind has ever done. And they came back, and you expect them to be all excited and everything, but look how fucking grim and sad looking they look. They look fucking sick. They look like something they saw or whatever it was disturbed them to the point where they just.
How long was this picture taken after they came back from the moon?
This was I think a couple days, within a week, I think.
And follow-up question, you may have answered this already because I was trying to pull it up so I wasn't listening. This was them currently discussing what they saw?
This was them when they came back from the moon discussing what they saw.
So they're like, what did you see up there? And then this is them talking.
Well, obviously they're not going to disclose what it was they saw.
Is there any footage of this?
Yeah, to show that this is the part of that conversation.
That whole conversation is like, I think, an hour long, I believe. It's on YouTube if you guys want to take a look. But that whole time they're just sitting there very grim, very gloomy fucking.
Well, they just came back from a crazy moon mission, so
And
they
you
could
think
be
you wouldn't be excited?
incredibly fatigued.
I don't know. I'm not buying it. I would be
Why
excited.
not? Why wouldn't you buy that?
Like, I just came back and I saw the craziest fucking place. I was
They
in
could
another
be,
planet.
They could be excited, but they could just be mentally and physically drained.
I don't know. I'm not buying it. I think these guys were debriefed because in November of 1966, NASA had sent up orbiters. And these were just spacecraft, unmanned spacecraft that were there to try and figure out where's a good spot to land for the moon landings. And so I couldn't find some of the pictures that I would like to use because I don't know which ones are real or not. But according to the photos that were taken, some people looked at them and they said there were spheres that were on the surface of the moon. Spheres like you would find in like an obelisk, like in ancient Egypt. And according to the actual photographs, they vary in height, but the tallest one is 15 stories tall. They're able to tell. And according to that, the spheres are 300 kilometers from the actual landing of Apollo 11.
So, because you said that, sorry, I'm just addressing a lot of Jid's question here. Because you said that, you don't believe that the moon landing was fake, obviously, because you believe that they landed there. So, you want to elaborate on that? Because a lot of people believe that that was fake too. So
The moon landing.
It's weird how conspiracy theorists. I don't mean to.
Yeah.
I don't mean to lump you in a group there, David. But how conspiracy theorists subscribe.
David is our resident
subscribe
conspiracy
to,
theorist.
But
though.
you subscribe to like certain conspiracies, but completely dismiss other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? You don't think? So by that rationale, you think that I believe that Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy? I don't think he did. I don't think he had nothing to do with it.
You don't think he had anything to do with it? You thought he was just
Absolutely
the person
nothing.
to blame?
He was a fucking.
There's a lot. Well,
scapegoat.
there's evidence
He was
that
a
points
librarian?
both. There's evidence that points both ways, and we'll never know.
Mean?
There's evidence that points that.
So that essentially is like.
I don't want to get into this.
essentially
There's
is
evidence
like,
that points that Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill Kennedy, but there's also evidence that points that he did. So I don't want to. I do not want to. I do not want to get into that. The switch continues.
It's like watching River Monsters or whatever. When Search for Loch Ness, like you watch the entire episode and at the end, it's like it could be out there. I don't know,
out there somewhere,
right?
Like Ghost Hunters. It's a definite maybe.
Nothing.
It's a definite maybe. All right.
Well,
So let's see. We're talking because I mentioned we were talking about the image, right, with the astronauts and how they were like kind of. You said that they were bummed out, and that you think that maybe
they look
were
fucking sick. Yes, they looked at something.
Right, so
they were informed about something, or they saw something.
I was looking up fatigue on astronauts.
Kind of like jet lag, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like that actually. So let's see here. Being in outer space can also be disorienting, which can sap your energy and take a physiological toll. Working for months straight will drain anyone's energy. Now imagine that working the whole time. With the whole time without any breaks and without any gravity, life itself works differently when you leave the Earth's atmosphere. Even though you can adjust, it won't feel nearly as natural as the environment in which you're used to existing. Astronauts also have a great deal of important work to do, which can be physically tiring. It's kind of weird the way they wrote this. It can be physically tiring, especially when combined with psychological fatigue. So they do get drained physically and mentally. So like I was saying, like it depends on how long after they landed did they do that interview. They could just literally just be fatigued just from being out of Earth's atmosphere and having no gravity.
That could be a possibility, but there's also that thought of if the moon is inhabited by extraterrestrials, they would have been informed by it. And now NASA came back and NASA's like debriefing them. Whatever you do, don't say anything. That you don't talk about anything that you saw.
So let's entertain your idea of that there's extraterrestrials on the moon.
Yes.
Why did they let the astronauts leave? If there's a highly civilized and a highly advanced race on the moon, why did they let the astronauts leave the moon?
Because that particular highly advanced race of aliens is actually rooting for us.
So they want us to know about.
They're like,
us.
yay, you made it! High five! Now go back
Not
and don't
quite.
tell anybody.
No, they're not the ones that are trying to keep it a secret. The government is.
Okay.
So you think?
So
that
right now you're right now you're covering like a whole thing with just the government. So I
So
don't really believe.
why wouldn't they have been like, oh, guess they found us. Time to go introduce ourselves.
Look, we don't know what actually happened out there. Exactly, from moment to moment. That might be a possibility, Josh. I don't fucking know. But actually, speaking of the government, I wanted to say how the Pentagon, earlier this week or something, or a week ago, to release those videos of the UFOs, and they're like, yeah, it's real. Those are legit fucking footage of UFOs being intercepted by naval space, U.S. naval spacecraft.
We got a quick question from Lodgett, David, and he's asking, what do you think about the current mission scheduled to
Mars / the moon? Because they did say we're going to go back to. Did say we're going to go back
Trump
to.
said
both
by
those.
2024 he wants to go to the moon, right?
Yeah. Okay. So think about it this way. So from 1969 to 1972, we had 6 Apollo missions, and all of a sudden we just stopped going. And it's been over 40 years since we've last been.
1970 was the last, or 72? 72?
Yeah. And so now we're finally going back. What was
so
it?
Does that support your theory? They haven't gone back because they're not allowed back?
I don't know.
How many times did you watch that movie Apollo 8?
Apollo 8. I've never seen it.
72. Last one. Apollo 17.
So I don't know. It's just this is kind of like slightly off topic. So the movie Apollo 8 is based on. It's like a found footage movie, and it's like, oh, the time we visited the dark side of the moon. It's like a horror movie. That's the last time we went, and I'm like, no, it wasn't.
I don't know. There's been reportings of actually NASA. Let me see. Hold on. Let me find this actual thing that I wrote. So NASA wrote a chronological catalog of reported lunar events. That document is called NASA TR R-277, and it's the photographs that I sent you, Josh. Those two.
You got it.
Yeah, those other two.
Are they in any specific order?
Do you pull one of them up, and I'll tell you which one is which.
Okay.
On the far left, you should see what it says 1700s.
Let's put this bad boy up. This starts with 1967, so you want to go to the other one?
Other one, please.
There you go. 1725, August 16th, Plato.
Yes. Well, Plato these are the locations of the moon that they, codenamed and stuff like that, right?
Uh-huh.
So now, some of these events that date back, this was NASA's research that they did. I believe it was sometime around the time of the Apollo landings, is sometime around that time. So these things here in the middle are description of what's going on that people see here on Earth on the moon. And they're saying that they see light flashes coming from the moon, gas being expelled here and there. And if you go, so this goes from the 1700s, one of the earliest dates, all the way to, if you go to the other photo, Josh.
Sorry,
Right.
I was reading some.
You're saying
volcano.
you're saying that they could see that in the 1700s.
1786, they claim that there was a volcano.
Well, I mean, yeah, there were volcanoes on the moon. That has been proven.
So this is a NASA document, though.
Yeah.
This is what they reported in their findings and stuff like that. So if you want to dispute me, you're gonna have to dispute that idea.
I'm not disputing the fact that there was that the moon had volcanoes. It did have volcanoes, and there's they have evidence on it. You can
the moon
look
has
at
if
it on
the moon has volcanoes, and the moon has a core.
It does have a core.
So if it has a molten core, it's not fucking hollow.
It's not hollow.
So by having volcanoes, you just disproved your theory. That's why I pointed out volcanoes.
Yeah. All right, that's been the Nevermore narrative,
That's
everybody.
Nevermore narrative. Thanks, everybody.
I'm not buying it still.
You're not
Continue, David. What else do you have?
I just want to see what were the ones that were pointed out on this one, David? A red color? What does that mean? Red color? Like
I
I
don't
looked
fucking
up
know, dude.
and I saw red brown color.
What does it say? What year is that? The red color thing.
Where the fuck are the years
It's
at?
on the left here.
No, there's not years there.
Is it on the left?
1967. Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Red color. Well, I mean, we have a red moon, so that's okay. Red brown color.
We have a red
bright
moon.
yellow flash visible a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
Black clouds surrounded by violet color.
You
Sounds
said there was-
these were in the 60s during fucking acid wave, man. You know, that's what they were doing there.
I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be able to do Ast if you were part of the.
Oh shit, I got a lot of stuff to
Acid
catch up on. Elizabeth, I drank a bottle of Stella and a bottle of Elysian because I've been drinking two beers. But I think I might get a third beer. Or maybe
I drank,
I'll get some whiskey.
I drank some whiskey, actually. I started with whiskey, and now I'm drinking Modelo.
Nice. Lodijid mentions that Elon Musk is planning on sending a manned mission to Mars.
Yeah.
We've been talking about that for a while, though, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was Elon Musk was just on the Joe Rogan podcast. He's
Again,
a fuck-
yeah.
Again,
the
yeah.
newest one didn't get released yet, did it?
That one came out, I think it was either yesterday or today. I want to say today,
Okay.
actually.
Trump recently invested in NASA by creating the Space Force. Did you guys see that Space Force commercial, by the way?
I did not. No.
They just released a recruitment commercial. It says, maybe your purpose in this world is not in this world, or some shit like that. Your purpose on this planet is not on this planet.
I find it funny that everyone made fun of Trump for saying Space Force, but like, dude, well, eventually we are going to go to space.
Fuck going to
So
space,
why is that
man.
cr-
Just create a
Why
lightsaber.
is that fucking
We already
crazy?
have
I'm
that.
fine with lightsabers. We don't need to go to space.
You guys
Well,
didn't do any research on that guy I told you about, right? Gary McKinnon?
Lightsabers aren't going to be a thing.
What'd you say, David?
You guys didn't do any research on that guy I told you about, right? Gary McKinnon?
Oh, yeah, of course. I looked up his first name and his last name, but I did it separately, so I never got to his Wikipedia page. But you could explain.
I didn't. Would you put that in the chat?
I think he
Yeah,
did. Yeah, he actually was like, because we talked to him, and
Okay.
after the show last time, we were way too drunk, and we were just like,
Oh,
just send
okay.
it to us. We'll look at it later. And he was like, guys, just
All right,
FYI, this is the guy I'm talking about, and we did
Gary
not,
McKinnon.
we did not look
Gary McKinnon.
Okay.
Gary McKinnon.
Gary McKinnon. Let's see
So-
here.
For a,
So let's see. Do you have all the? Do you want to read on him, David? Or you want me to read it?
you can read it because I only know what I know, and it might be incorrect. Some of the actual, that like a
Alright, so
13-month
this
period,
is
he hacked
the-
into NASA.
Gary McKinnon, born 10th of February 1966, is a Scottish systems administrator and a hacker who was accused in 2002 of perpetrating the biggest military computer hack of all time. Easy Trinity. Although McKinnon himself states that he was merely looking for evidence of free energy suppression. So, all right, so really quick, let's go through free energy suppression because they have a thing I can click on here. Free energy suppression is a conspiracy theory that technologically viable, pollution-free, no-cost energy sources are being suppressed by government, corporations, or advocacy groups. Devices allegedly suppressed include perpetual motion machines. What? That's fucking crazy.
Who has perpetual motion machines? That's not a thing.
Yeah, well, that's just this theory. So
That's what he was looking up.
Yeah.
But talk about what he finds.
Okay. All right, we'll talk about what he finds. And a cover-up of the UFO activity and other technologies potentially useful to the public. On 16th of October 2012, but it didn't say here what he found.
Okay, so according to him and what he found were, dozens of different files, NASA files. And when he clicks on them,
Oh, they said he deleted a bunch of critical files from operating systems, which shut down the United States Army's military district of Washington network, 2,000 computers for 24 hours. McKinnon also posted a notice on the military's website. Your security is crap.
There you go.
And he's a troll. That's fucking great.
Not only that, dude, there was a time where he almost got caught, and he actually made the other person think that he was actually higher than him. He said, what are you
Dude,
doing here?
after the September 11th attacks in 2001, he deleted weapons logs at the Earl Naval Weapons Station, rendering its network of 300 computers inoperable and paralyzing munitions supply deliveries for the U.S. Navy's Atlantic Fleet. McKinnon was also accused of copying data, account files, and passwords onto his computer. U.S. authorities stated that the cost of tracking and correcting the problems he caused was over $700,000. While not admitting that it constituted evidence of destruction, McKinnon did admit leaving a threat on the computer. U.S. foreign policy is akin to government-sponsored terrorism these days. It was not a mistake that there was a huge security stand down on September 11th last year. I am solo. I will continue to disrupt at the highest levels. Damn. What a crazy asshole.
So, what he finds on some of these NASA files were lists of ships that said USSS, meaning United States spaceship. And on this list were names of the people that were on board these ships. But right in front of their names, it said terrestrial and non-terrestrial on some of the names. Meaning that we're already in contact and working well with alien beings. And we have fucking spaceships that are out in space right now, possibly on the moon watching over us.
I'd have to read more of this on here. There's a lot.
Why no intervention then, David? Tell me that.
You mean why no intervention? Why no alien intervention?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So if we went to the moon and we found out, why the fuck wouldn't they come down here?
there are people here
And
on
make a
Earth
big
that
deal.
still,
So
there's
And make a
people
big deal about
that
it.
still get pissed off at someone else's skin color. You think they're going to be okay with
David,
aliens?
Are you saying we're like an ant farm in like a 13-year-old kid's house in their room where they just watch us?
That's actually another theory I kind of stumbled upon going through
That
this.
exact theory?
Yeah.
Ant
So-
farm in a kid's
Well,
kid's
not literally that, but that humans were created and that life on Earth was created through the moon being created. So the moon was created specifically to create life here on Earth. Since it's like David said, it is a large moon, so it makes the Earth spin at a certain amount.
So hold on, you're saying the moon was created before the Earth was created, or before we were added to the Earth?
Before we were added to the
Gotcha.
Earth, so the Earth was
they're
here, and they
basically
created the
setting
Earth
up-
to
setting
create
up the
to set up
operating-
life.
They're setting up
Yeah.
the operating room with
Yes.
the viewer windows and the operating table, and then they throw somebody on the table, and that's us.
Yes.
Can you really imagine though, like finding out that not only are we not the smartest fucking people here, you know what I mean? Like we're not the most intelligent beings, but we're like created. Like we're not even fucking. I mean,
So
don't
just
you
think-
feel like a computer simulation after that?
A
You're
little
like,
bit.
So this is a
A little
fucking
bit, but it
game?
just if you think about how outrageous that sound is, David. Like, so let's say let's entertain that and say that that's a real thing. So after the Earth was created in the solar system, they created the moon. They're like, hey, we'll take this rock and we're going to put it here next to this planet. It's going to create a perfect rotation and life will all of a sudden spawn on Earth. And then let's see what happens, right? They make a petri dish. I don't think they intended, for humans to be the dominant species on here, because mainly what happened first was life came out of the ocean. I mean, that's been proven, right? All life came from the ocean.
So, but that's the opposite of what David believes, though, right? I mean, if
It
we
is
were,
the
if
opposite
we were
of what David
created, they wouldn't.
But I'm just saying, if we're trying to entertain that thought, right? Like that the aliens had no idea what was going to happen. And even at that shit happened billions of years ago. Can you imagine how advanced this civilization would be to create life at that time? It's almost unbelievable. Does that make sense? Or am I drinking too much?
Both are drinking too much.
Did you say you both?
Yeah.
I barely drank anything. What are you talking about? What do you mean I'm drinking too much? You're crazy, man.
But
Don't-
does that not make sense?
Don't
Dave?
blame me, or don't blame.
Does it not make
what I'm
sense?
saying.
For me, I don't know, man. I believe what I believe, dude.
No. No. I understand you're going to say that you want to believe what you want to believe. You wanted me to come here with an open mind.
So
I
so
did.
what do you think?
You have
and,
to
and I'm
you
pretty,
have to do the same thing here when I give you some information.
and I'm pretty close-minded. So I think we have a good balance here. But David, let me just ask you, because I did kind of. I mean, I listened to you, but I tried to find holes in it. So the volcano thing. What are your thoughts on that? Because you submitted this to me, and then I just chose something out of it.
The volcano thing, well, if there's volcanoes on, then yeah, it could be a fucking volcano, but it might not be a fucking molten lava volcano like we have here on Earth. It could be something else. I need to look into that because I'm not really too
do you
sure.
believe that volcano
a-
just meant the shape of it?
Is it a
Like
furry kitten volcano?
like
It
a
just shoots
mountain?
out furry kittens.
Sorry, David. I don't mean to patronize you. I just wanted to ask what your opinion was on that, for real.
No, I need
Because
to.
that's where I
more
found like
research on
a
that
like a
stuff.
hole. You know, I'm looking for
Mm-hmm.
holes, so that's why.
I'm not looking for
I'll
holes.
wrap it up.
I was looking for facts. I was looking for facts and proof, David. That's all.
I'm gonna
Like
wrap
I
it
said,
up with the remote viewing done by Ingo Swann
Okay.
back in the 70s and 80s. His work was classified before 1977, so I think his work was done between 1975 and 1976. There was a government agent who asked him if he could do some remote viewing. He had done work for the government, for the CIA beforehand. Remote viewing, for those of you who don't know, is astral projection, being able to project oneself into another part of the world while simultaneously keeping your body here where you're at. So he had done work for the government for years, and so he was approached by this shadowy figure guy. His name was Axelrod, and he asked him he would pay him money to go to this secret bunker that was not too far from DC, Washington DC, and he was given coordinates to the moon. So he's okay. So he astral projects himself dozens of times because this happened, over a period of time. Eventually, what he saw was structures, domes, pyramids, spheres, life, people there, terrestrials and non-terrestrials alike. And apparently that he was able to breathe on the moon, even though there was no atmosphere. I don't know.
but if he's astral projecting, it's his spirit self. It wouldn't be his physical body, so he would be able to breathe there. Why is that weird?
People that were on the moon were able to breathe without any apparatus. That's what he says.
So there's
there's-
structures and people there without
And equipment to breathe.
suit.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So there's interviews of him and stuff being done on him on YouTube. If you guys want to look it up, Ingo Swann with 2 N's. And so
Ingo Swann.
INGO Swann with 2 N's.
I looked up
And-
Axelrod, but all I could find is like Axelrod.
And Axelrod.
That's awesome.
So according to him, this is what he saw that's there on the moon. And it's been there since the 70s at least. So I don't know, man. If there's a base there, I still think
they have
that
out of
structures
body
on.
experiment as one of the things here. I don't know.
So David, let me ask you before we go, what like got you questioning this? Like what started the initial like, maybe there is something going on, and where'd you like get started on this information?
About the moon, or
just what got you questioning? Because as a kid, I mean, it's not like you look up and you're like, oh, that thing's fake. Maybe every now and then you're like, it's fucking following me. You know what I mean? But because that's what I thought when I was a kid. But
Yeah.
what made you think? I mean, you grew up your entire life. At one point in time, you're like, maybe that motherfucker isn't real. Or like what got you started
watching
on it?
Honestly, just started watching. Yeah, Ancient Aliens, watching it over and over, like different episodes.
The one thing I don't like about watching, because I watched a bunch of those Ancient Alien clips, because you said that's where you first heard the theory, is how often they say things like ring like a bell, reverberated. They say it so many times that it like instills, like it's almost like they're brainwashing you. I watched it like a 9-minute clip, and they must have said it at least 7 times in those 9 minutes. And I was like, what the fuck? Why are they saying this thing so many times? They don't need to say that one phrase over and over again. They could just say it once and then just move on to the next subject. But they kept repeating it for some reason. So I don't know, maybe if it was just like a YouTube thing, because that's where I watch it.
It might have been, because I actually watched.
I was like, what the fuck is happening?
They don't repeat it like that. If you watch the actual show on the History Channel, what?
Elizabeth said she used to try and run away from the moon. So Manny asked a question. I asked him to elaborate, so we'll get his question elaborated on in a second.
What's his question?
What was his question?
His question was our moon or another moon that's in the solar system?
Oh yeah, he has to elaborate because there's too many.
Yeah, that didn't
Um,
make sense.
Lotta
asks, where does David stand on flat Earth theory? Well, obviously, I mean, you think
It's
that the
round.
Earth is round, right?
Very
We
round.
can
We
at least
landed
agree
on the
on
moon.
that.
The Earth is a
See the Earth
sphere.
from the moon.
It's not
It's round.
just round; it's also a sphere.
It's a
Because
solid.
technically, flat Earth is round, right? It's a pog. The people apparently we're living life on a pog.
David, you really got to get a flat earther on here. We have to.
I would love to.
We have to.
I would love
Does anybody
to.
know any flat earthers?
Nope.
I actually
I
talked
think
to
they all fell
Manny.
off the Earth.
I talked to Manny about flat earthers, and he didn't know it was a real thing, and he went down a rabbit hole, and he was sending me videos. He's like, "Check out this
He's
shit."
like, oh my
Like,
god, dude! This guy's about to launch himself to space in a man-made rocket.
and
Let's
blow
watch
himself the fuck up.
He's like, it does make sense. Astronauts' helmets are curved, which means they see a curvature in the Earth.
Yeah,
What
dude, there's
in
some
the
stupid
world?
theories. Why doesn't Elon Musk just get the guy who runs the Flat Earth Society and shoot him up in a fucking rocket?
I mean, he would, right?
He should. He can. He could just be like, "I'm tired of hearing your bullshit," and just shoot the guy
He's
up
like,
there.
look, bro, I just sold all my possessions and named my kid something weird. Manny says he knows a couple of flat earthers. Manny, will one of the flat earthers be on? Because that would be great.
Well, I think if we get a flat earther on, they should at least know the science behind their theory. But the problem is the whole thing with the flat Earth is they don't have a model. So they have some
And
science,
they have that.
some science, but they don't have a model that explains their theory. You know what I'm saying? Because we have a model that explains why the Earth is a sphere, but they don't. But flat earthers don't have a model that explains why flat Earth is a thing. That's what I was saying. Like when the things based on science, like there's people come up with a theory, and then you have to back it up with science and facts, and there's always a fuck ton of math involved, and then you need to build a model based on those facts. One that actually works. But the flat earthers do not have one.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yep, that's crazy. But then we believe other things. So
Yeah, we believe other things. Sasquatch,
Well-
David, real or fake?
Real.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. I don't know. See you guys next time.
well, Bigfoot might still be out there.
I want to pick next week's thing. Can I do that?
Topic?
Sure.
Bigfoot.
I want to do shadow people next week.
Okay.
Okay, give us for those of the viewers who are watching, because obviously I know, but give us a little bit about what shadow people, what you think shadow people is, because I know
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah. I
What
want to
is
go back. I want to go back to creepy because we've kind of strayed away from creepy the last.
hold on. I
episode.
just asked you to give us a little bit of information about what shadow people is.
Oh fuck.
You're like, yep. I want to go
yep,
creepy.
yep.
Okay.
No, I mean I don't. That's the thing is like I don't know that much about shadow people. I've heard about it and my theory my thought on shadow people is that they are spirits trapped like not in our realm and not in the spirit realm but a realm in between. And that's why they're shadows. That's just literally something that I thought. I have no idea how accurate any of that is. So it's a subject that I was always intrigued by, and I would like to learn, a little more information about.
Elizabeth asked for the Speakeasy Meme Exchange.
Oh,
Wrong show.
Show Elizabeth.
Tune in Sunday, and you will see the Speakeasy, which might be our last ever Speakeasy Gentleman show.
Quite
I think so.
possibly. We don't know.
So I mean, I'll talk it off. I'll talk it out real quick on this show. But Pierce is on our fucking logo, right? I mean, you could put your head down for a second there, George. But Pierce is right here. Sorry, wrong finger. Right, but he hasn't been on the last 2 seasons, right? Basically. Yeah. So do we move on without Pierce, or do we rebrand, do something different? Do we just cancel it all together because nobody fucking even goes on the Speakeasy Meme Exchange? Who knows? Oh, a lot of people go on there. But anyway, we'll see what the future looks like. But tune in for the final episode of season 4, at least, of the Speakeasy Gentlemen, and we'll do that on Sunday.
All right. See you guys Sunday. Ready? Have a good night.
Oh, I jumped the gun.
Son of a bitch.